I've heard good old boys like me can fall down on their knees, claim that they.
Since the album started with a lot of ego and Outside Dog, I felt it only appropriate to end the album with humility. And I know that I'm sure I can have a little bit of both at times, but the humility has always been really important to me. My mama tried to raise me to be a thankful boy, and she also raised me to be a Christian boy, which I have failed her at miserably many times in my life. But one thing that really led me to music in the first place was going to church on Sundays and singing hymns. And as I crawled out of the hole I'd been in for 2 years working on Damascus, I made a promise to the big man that I would sing a hymn at every show we did last year. And I was able to keep that promise. But it just didn't really feel right singing these hymns that paint this perfect picture of what it's like to be a Christian and a believer and what heaven might be like. It all just seems, I love the songs, but it just seems a little too like theatrical and, the perfect story to me. So I'd been wanting to write a good old boys hymn, for quite a while. And my daughter and I had been sitting outside of the camper listening to Brent Cobb's And Now Turn to Page record, where he does all the old hymn covers. Such an awesome record. And we were listening to Tyler Childers' Can I Take My Hounds to Heaven record. And she just was loving these two records. And we were watching live performances and stuff. And it was a beautiful day, man. It was like yesterday was. It was just amazing outside. And I started thinking of this day. We were leaving church. My granny was my homie when I was a kid, man. She was 80 years old, 82 when she passed away, but she taught me my first 3 chords on guitar and gave me a Roger Miller's Greatest Hits CD and told me I could learn any one of those songs on that record with E, A, and B. So she taught me those, and I would go over there and mow her yard on the weekends, sit down with her when I was done on the back porch and eat macaroni and cheese, grilled cheese sandwiches, and drink some lemonade. She'd just tell me stories. I lost my granny in a car wreck when I was 14 years old. She was giving it hell on the way home from Walmart with quilt material. She had some quilts to make, and she went around a curve and ended up hitting somebody head on, speeding, which is pretty gangster way for an 82-year-old woman to go out. I mean, I'm just saying, But Granny was a gangster. But I got to thinking of this day. We were leaving church. It was beautiful outside. And I just remember her looking at me and the wind's blowing through her poofed up hair. And she says, man, it's amazing out here today. And the smile on her face, the wind, the sun, it imprinted that memory in my mind. And sitting outside on a very similar day to that, my daughter watching good music on YouTube videos. And I just looked up. I got to thinking of being a kid on days like that when me and my brother would hike to Pine Knob, and in our blue jeans we would just hop in this little swimming hole at Pine Knob Creek. It was just a little hop, skip, and a jump through the holler at the house there. I looked up at the sky and I said, Granny, does heaven have a creek where I can swim in my old blue jeans? And that kind of started that idea. And I actually finished writing that song on the way here one day, driving up from Kentucky. But me and you, originally, I'd also been listening to a lot of John Prine, and In Spite of Ourselves in particular, that song, which the weirdest thing, if you ever hear In Spite of Ourselves, it's not a song that you think would provoke tears, but I'm riding around by myself one day, just riding some back roads over in Monticello, Kentucky, and I was listening to this song, and something about it just, it got me. And so I finished Does Heaven Have a Creek, and I come up, and originally it was, what do you call it? You were playing that certain style of guitar.
Oh, the Travis picking?
Yeah, you were doing the Travis picking thing, and it was more like, oh, does heaven have a creek where I can swim in my old blue jeans? Mm-hmm. And which was fun. It was a lot of fun. But I was playing the one thing that I know how to play on piano halfway decent that you guys always says sounds like Journey. which is like C, A minor, F, G. And, or maybe it's just the little parts I put in it that make it sound like Journey. But you guys were here when we recorded
Oh
Does Heaven Have a
yeah,
Creek?
we were. Me and Kenzie. We came over.
Oh, you brought donuts, right? Donuts?
I think we brought Camino Real that day.
Vino Real, and you brought donuts.
Might have.
Cupcakes, yeah. So I didn't know you were here. I walked upstairs and I was like, damn, there's a feast up here. But you wanted to keep it pretty stripped down for this song in particular. I think this is probably the most stark contrast of a song in the entire record. I mean, it's definitely
Besides
the most
Pill.
stripped down. Pill, I feel like vibes with like 215, 634, and Jones in and stuff though. I feel like this song really took me back, or the way that we ended up,
Porchiest song.
yeah, the way we produced it ended up being like the most of where I come from originally, like being at church with a piano and just singing. Even like Charlie, he stayed pretty subtle in the rest of it and everything. It was really a vocal piano song for the most part. But you did add a little bit of Elton John in there.
Yeah.
That I mean, it's pretty much spot on Elton John, which at first I was like, we can't do that. But then also, I'm all about like tipping my hat
Yeah.
to that kind
I
of
think
stuff
it just
too.
felt too good.
Yeah,
not to
absolutely.
do
I
it.
mean, he's obviously been a huge influence, musically throughout my life as well. So why not tip your hat to those guys when you get the opportunity?
There was just one thing that I didn't. Honestly, when I first heard "Does Heaven Have a Creek," I was just pissed that I didn't get to help you write it.
That was the only song so far that I've written completely by myself that we
See,
put
no,
on the record.
No ego.
No ego. Oh, damn, man, you gonna call me out like that? Well, dude, honestly, it's like, I used to only write by myself, obviously, but I would be dumb to think that and I know I might put off the vibe like I know it all the time, but I so much more enjoy writing with people, especially, I never wanted to be a campy guy as far as writers goes, but there's obviously, as you go along, you find people that know who you are and what you'll say, what you won't say, and you build that team around you. And I'm willing to like write with other people, but you guys get it at this point. You know what I'm going for. So it's a little intimidating to sit down and try to write a song by myself these days, because it's like, well, I feel like you guys sometimes know me a little bit better than I know myself in the writing room, and I hear things come off of you guys. I would be dumb to think that I know it all and I could do it all best by myself all the time. But this song was super personal to me, and I have a long history with the subject in the song. I mean, Mom said that I was born on a Sunday, and the following Sunday she had me held tightly beside Heavenly Highway Hymns, So, speaking of books, though, like Heavenly Highway Hymns, this book in particular, The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin, I read this shortly before we decided to come here and finish Damascus up just as friends hanging out in a house for a week. And I bought you guys all a copy and asked you all to read it before we got into the recording process. And one thing about this book, there's one part where he talks about the whole vibe can change, or a singer's whole performance can change with an audience. And like we were saying, you and Kenzie stopped by, and I remember being right in there in that singing booth and looking out here and seeing you and Kenzie watching me sing. And I remember seeing Kenzie's face at a part of the song, and I could tell like she was connecting with the song. I could tell she could feel it, and it truly helped me like get into the song and be able to, like, there's a part in, you'll hear it in the first chorus, is Heaven Have a Creek, where I can swim in my old blue jeans. Can they wash the sins off me that's added up since that revival? And you can hear my voice crack in that, because I was just able to, it was like being back at church and singing in front of my family, and seeing the Spirit move on people, and it got to me during that song for sure. So
That's my favorite line in the song, by the way.
Can,
That added up since that revival.
I didn't know if it was going to make sense at first,
Totally.
I come from that life too, though, so I understood it, But yeah, that's the whole thing. Is like I was raised to believe once saved, always saved. So it's like maybe you get a little bit of a extra wash off before you walk out of the River Jordan, onto the streets of gold. But I love that song. I love how it turned out. It was important to me to have God be a big part of this record.
Brother, I guess I